The saga of who is the first to discover the Americas continues. The history books have already been rewritten, recognizing a Viking explorer ahead of the more famous Italian Columbus. Slowly but surely, evidence is mounting that a powerful city-state might have beaten them both to the riches of the West. Did Carthage reach the Americas, and what evidence is there to prove this theory? Keep watching and make up your own intrigued mind. For decades, historians and archaeologists have steadfastly told us that mankind's first great civilizations had suddenly sprung up between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers 6,000 years ago. In 1994, an ancient site called Gobekli Tepe would shatter that assumption and show us that when it comes to our past, all we can do is make assumptions about who did what first. Did an ancient naval superpower travel across the world to reach the New World centuries before Leif Erikson and Columbus are said to have discovered the Americas? Did the Carthaginians reach South America in the first millennium BC? Before we jump into this fascinating yet contentious theory, just a reminder that if you're interested in early access to videos and live chats with the creator of Intrigued Mind, consider subscribing to our Patreon. Your support will greatly help us keep the channel producing more intriguing content. Who were the Carthaginians, and how did this ancient society theoretically manage to traverse the treacherous Atlantic Ocean to reach the New World? Carthage's history is intricately intertwined with that of the Phoenicians. The Phoenicians were an ancient civilization that appeared in the 15th century BCE in the eastern Mediterranean. They were renowned for their maritime capabilities and created a large commerce network spanning from the Mediterranean to the Atlantic. Phoenician towns, such as Tyre and Sidon, as well as their colonies, were important commercial hubs. One such colony, founded in the 9th century BC, would become a superpower in the Mediterranean. From humble beginnings as a Phoenician trading stop, Carthage swiftly evolved into a great power in the Mediterranean. The city's riches were derived from its commerce and luxury items, like textiles and metals, and its control of the trade of precious resources, particularly its silver mines in Spain. Carthage was also responsible for the creation of a formidable naval fleet and the establishment of several foreign territories, two of which were the islands of Sicily and Sardinia. The Punic Wars were a series of conflicts fought between Carthage and the Roman Republic. From 264 to 241 BC, the First Punic War was fought for the sovereignty of Sicily. The Second Punic War, which started in 218 BCE, was precipitated by Hannibal's invasion of Italy. During the Third Punic War, which lasted from 149 to 146 BC, the Romans finally overcame Carthage. The destruction of the city and the enslavement of its residents marked the end of Carthaginian rule. Although during its golden era, the Carthaginians had mastered the somewhat tame Mediterranean Sea, the question still remains if they sailed further afield than what the history books tell us. After devastating battles with the Assyrians around 672 BC, Pharaoh Necho of Egypt searched for a new strategy to defeat his formidable northern foes. His initial aim was to create a canal connecting the Mediterranean and the Red Sea, which would allow him to swiftly transport his soldiers by sea and possibly destroy his adversaries. During construction, he had a nightmare, and when he consulted his seers, they informed him that the canal would serve as a route for armies and ships, but for his enemies. He promptly canceled the building of the canal and considered the prospect of circumnavigating Africa by sea to outflank his adversaries. He recruited a fleet of famous sailors from Tyre, Sidon, Byblos, and the Phoenicians to sail from the Red Sea around the African continent. The expedition took 3 years to complete. The journey was too lengthy to be useful for fast-moving forces. Thus, the project was abandoned. Although this might all be hearsay, there just might be evidence of the Phoenicians or the Carthaginians rounding the Cape of Good Hope at the tip of southern Africa. In the 1970s, a shipwreck was discovered off the coast of South Africa that experts believe may have been of Phoenician origin. The wreck was carbon dated to around 600 BCE, which would place it within the time frame of Phoenician seafaring and trade, as well as the legendary expedition sent by Pharaoh Necho. Artifacts found on the ship, such as pottery and copper ingots, were consistent with materials that would have been used by the Phoenicians. Furthermore, the ship was found to be carrying a type of tin that is believed to have originated from the British Isles, which is consistent with the Phoenicians' known trade routes. Other evidence, such as inscriptions, rock art, oral traditions, and 3 possible shipwrecks found on land where massive rivers used to be in South Africa, also supports the idea of Phoenician visits to the southern tip of Africa. So, it's clear that the Phoenicians and their later incarnation, the Carthaginians, were excellent maritime sailors. But did they reach South America? The distance for sailing from the Suez Canal around Africa, through the Mediterranean, and back to the Suez Canal is approximately 19,000 nautical miles, or 35,000 kilometers, as per accounts for Pharaoh Necho's proposed battle plans. Sailing from Carthage to the Americas can vary depending on the specific location in South America and the route taken. A direct route from Carthage, or modern-day Tunis, to the northeastern coast of South America, such as Brazil, would be around 6,800 miles, so the distance traveled was certainly in the range of what the Carthaginians had achieved before. However, you can remain inside of land while circumnavigating Africa. Reaching the Americas requires significant open ocean travel. Surely, if they had reached the Americas, there would be some physical evidence in the form of artifacts. Although several artifacts that prove the Carthaginians went to the Americas are now thought to be fakes, the idea that the Carthaginians landed in the Americas is mostly thought to be discredited. But there are still strong supporters of this theory, which surprisingly became a part of Mormonism in the 19th century. Ross T. Christensen has proposed the hypothesis that the Mulekites in the Book of Mormon were largely Phoenician in their ethnic origin. Let's take a look at some of these artifacts, inscriptions, and even drugs that might be attributed to the transatlantic voyages of the Carthaginians, and you can decide for yourself. The Los Lunas Decalogue Stone. This is a massive rock on Hidden Mountain in Los Lunas, New Mexico, with an inscription etched into a flat surface in a fairly regular pattern. The rock, which is also known as the Los Lunas Mystery Stone or Commandment Rock, is etched with a condensed version of the Decalogue or 10 Commandments. The stone weighs 80 tons, which is why it hasn't been moved to a museum or lab to be studied and stored. Some suggest that the inscription is pre-Columbian and is evidence of early Semitic or Carthaginian interaction with the Americas. Professor Frank Hibben, an archaeologist from the University of New Mexico, was sure that the inscription was legitimate since it was an ancient written text. According to some archaeologists, the stone is a forgery. The Dighton Rock. The petroglyphs on the Dighton Rock, a crystallized sandstone rock found in the riverbed of the Taunton River in Berkeley, Massachusetts, remain controversial. Ezra Stiles, then president of Yale University, stated in his election sermon in 1767 that the images on the rock were of Phoenician origin. Stiles added that a copy of the inscription was sent to M. Gabellin of the Parisian Academy of Sciences, who, after comparing them with Punic paleography, believed them to be Punic, suggesting that ancient Carthaginians once traveled to where the rock was discovered. Carthaginian coins. During the building of a road from Cambridge to Malden in Massachusetts in 1787, several Carthaginian coins were uncovered. The copper and silver coins were determined to have been struck in the 3rd century BC. They included brief inscriptions in the Carthaginian script Cufic. Further Carthaginian coins were discovered near Waterbury, Connecticut. They were coined for military use in Punic, the Carthaginian language, and depicted a horse's head. During the 20th century, the rate of discovery of these coins accelerated, beginning in 1913, when a Macedonian tetradrachm was discovered during a home foundation excavation in Montana. The earliest mention of a coin showing direct Phoenician interaction is in a 1975 publication by Joseph B. Mahan and Douglas C. Braithwaite in the non-peer-reviewed Anthropological Journal of Canada. They relate the discovery of a Syracuse coin in Phoenix City, Alabama, by a young boy who wanted to barter it for sweets. He said he discovered it close to his house on the outskirts of the city. Later, Preston E. Blackwell of the University of Georgia sent the coin to the Fogg Museum in Boston for identification. The coin was confirmed by museum experts as a Syracuse coin from 490 BC. Later, Blackwell claimed that the coin was taken from his wallet while he was hospitalized. Cocaine mummies. Yes, you heard right. Cocaine and nicotine traces discovered in Egyptian mummies have sparked speculation about early connections with the New World, as cocaine and tobacco are not native to Eurasia or Africa. Dr. Svetlana Balabanova, a German toxicologist, tested the mummies at the Munich Museum for residues of opium in 1992 to confirm their usage in religious rituals. Hinutawi, a priestess from the 21st dynasty, had substantial quantities of cocaine and nicotine in her hair. The doctor understood the significance of discovering indications of suspected tobacco and cocaine use in the remains of a woman who died 2,500 years before Columbus. She conducted further tests to exclude the possibility of contamination and sent samples to 3 independent forensic labs, which verified her conclusions. She conducted further tests on mummies from a range of locales and time periods and discovered that around 1/3 of them had comparable findings to Hinutawi. This included the legendary Ramses II. Since the coca plant was only grown in the New World, it is possible that Phoenicians or Carthaginians were responsible for delivering tobacco and coca to the Egyptian royal courts. No other nation would have been in a comparable situation, given their desire for unrestricted trade, their spirit of discovery, and their accomplished naval history. There's no doubt that the Carthaginians were a force to be reckoned with in the ancient world. Nobody else had the guts to take on the Roman Empire with war elephants, did they? But did they reach the New World on their expeditions? There are artifacts and accounts from ancient historians saying they did. But, as with everything in history, there is no concrete proof that they discovered the Americas yet. For more videos on the most amazing forgotten parts of our history, be sure to subscribe to the Intrigued Mind channel. Like the video and leave your suggestions in the comments below.